The Caitlin Clark conversation is really interesting. You have both people taking sides or taking a side of whether she's overblown or people not taking the side of Caitlin Clark, whichever stance you're on. People talking about race, people talking about gender, whatever it is. Caitlin Clark is thoroughly going to be fine. Caitlin Clark is going to be one of the greatest players of the WNBA's era. You know, I saw James Jones talk yesterday because everyone's overreacting to a hard foul or a push to Caitlin Clark or feel like Caitlin Clark has a target on her back. Everyone's reacting to that. The whole Caitlin Clark controversy, is she getting bullied? I don't know. And honestly, I don't really care. I don't really care that a professional athlete is getting tested by other professional athletes. It shouldn't shock me, and it definitely shouldn't shock you. We've seen this. We've all played sports. We've all watched sports. They're competitive. They're rough. They push each other around. But here's what I will say, and it's basically coming from the comments of Angel Reese, who says, you know, we're not just watching for one person, where the WNBA's been fined. This notion that the WNBA was fine before Caitlin Clark, this notion that the WNBA was fine without Caitlin Clark, the WNBA is thriving with or without Caitlin Clark, or that casual fans like myself of the WNBA are now flocking to the sport not because of Caitlin Clark, but because they love the sport. That's nonsense. Casual fans, talking heads like myself, we're flocking to the sport for stars. And call it what it is, the WNBA has not produced stars. I know Diana Taurasi couldn't pick her out of a lineup. I live in Phoenix. She's great. She's awesome. I've been told she's the GOAT. Caitlin Clark gets me to a television set. Angel Reese doesn't. I'm a casual WNBA fan. I'll gladly admit it. I'm of the honesty takes here. I'm going to be honest with you if I watch something or if I don't. But I have only started following the WNBA somewhat closely because of Caitlin Clark. And WNBA fans, or the casual WNBA fan, or WNBA players as a whole that think that that's not the case, are just insanity. Caitlin Clark is the reason why they're on their own chartered planes now, why they're not flying public with everyone else. That's what Caitlin Clark brings to the equation. And anyone that wants to come at me or talk nonsense about Caitlin Clark getting special treatment, yeah, she does. LeBron James did. Michael Jordan did. Tom Brady did. If you're great, you get special treatment. I hate to break it to you. And Caitlin Clark is great. And no, she hasn't panned out so far, but she's done pretty good for being a rookie. And so when I see Angel Reese say it's not just because of one player, oh yes it is. I have not flicked on a Chicago Sky game. I have not clicked on a Los Angeles Sparks game unless Caitlin Clark is playing one of those two opponents. I have never once went to my app and went and checked the box scores of games for any game besides Caitlin Clark. I do that now. I check box scores for Caitlin Clark. I keep tabs. That is the first steps to take before you really start watching intently of a sport. And Caitlin Clark has got me to a TV set. No other WNBA player has ever done that for me. And people saying, oh, the people that laid the groundwork, I don't care about any of that. Or people telling me I'm late to the trend of the WNBA. No, you were just early. I'm right on time. Every fan that's been watching because of Caitlin Clark is right on time. They're not behind, or they're not missing a notion, missing a narrative. We're all here for Caitlin Clark. I don't want her protected. And if you want Caitlin Clark protected, you're in the wrong. No one can be great. No one can become the greatest of all time. No one can become a dominant player without some turbulence. LeBron James had it. He was swept in the 2007 NBA Finals. LeBron James didn't make the playoffs in his first year. Victor Wembanyama is a generational talent. missed the playoffs, won like 19 games last year. Patrick Mahomes sat his first year. Tom Brady had to wait to get an opportunity when Drew Bledsoe got hurt. That's just the idea of being the best player or being an all-time great. You have to face turbulence. You have to be pushed around. So I'm not asking for special treatment of Caitlin Clark. Yeah, are some hits dirty and are they cheap shots? Sure, but it's only going to make her better. Wait until she gets a little bit older and she puts a little bit more muscle on, or she puts a little bit more weight on, just like every athlete needs to do to adapt to the current situation around them. Her shooting ability is not going away. She's only going to get better going to the paint. So I don't want her protected. Do I want her protected from cheap shots? Sure. Do I want her coddled like LeBron James is at times? No. I want Caitlin Clark to walk through the depths of hell that is the WNBA in order to get better. Michael Jordan had to do it. Do you remember the Bad Boys Pistons? They would just push Michael Jordan to the ground. That is the alley or the valley that Caitlin Clark has to walk through. She has to get pushed around. She has to get roughed up. And she's going to. But she's built for it. This idea from women's sports activists, which I don't consider myself one. I consider myself a fan of all sports. And I want equality for all sports. I don't have to toot this drum or talk out loud or speak as loud as I need to for the WNBA and for Caitlin Clark. And if you're not backing her, then you're a bad guy. That's not who I am. I'll give you credit when credit is due, and I'll knock you down a peg when it's time to knock you down. I'll give out criticism just as quick as I'll give out credit. But the reason we're watching the WNBA is for Caitlin Clark and Caitlin Clark alone. The Cameron Brinks, the Angel Reeses, they're fun side stories to have with the main course of Caitlin Clark. But I don't want her catered to. I don't want her coddled. I want her to walk through the same valleys that Michael Jordan had to walk through with the Bad Boys Pistons, that LeBron James had to walk through after getting swept in the 2007 NBA Finals, that Tom Brady had to walk through from starting to be the backup to finally becoming the starter of the Patriots, that Patrick Mahomes had to walk through by sitting a full year even though we all know he was better than Alex Smith. Because greatness becomes greatness after going through the valleys of hell and being pushed through and being prodded and having to just be tested. I like that Caitlin Clark is being tested. And the only way that you can become great is if you're tested, is if you're pushed, if you have a couple of cheap shots knocked on you. Am I rooting for cheap shots? No. Do I think it's ultimately great for Caitlin Clark? Yes, because she's built for it. And give it a couple of years, because although she's still playing fantastic for a rookie, give it a year or two. Wait till she gets some help, because this league is going to be ran through Caitlin Clark. And anyone that doesn't think that we're watching strictly for Caitlin Clark, you're insane. The only person that gets me to a television set, the only person that gets me to check box scores is Caitlin Clark and Caitlin Clark alone. It's not that I don't want her, I don't want her protected. I don't want her coddled like some NBA superstars are now. I want her tested. But I also know that although I want her tested, I absolutely believe everyone is watching for Caitlin Clark. And I'm not apologizing because I didn't watch your sport before. You didn't give me a reason to. You know who does give me a reason? Caitlin Clark. And that's why we watch. And everyone should want to see her tested and go through some hardships, because that's what every great has to go through.